Uh, Hello, everyone. I have with me Supriya Shukla and Muskan Chawla, who have done their graduation in economics from IP College, University of Delhi, and masters in economics from University of Warwick, UK. So they'll be conducting the live session today. Supriya,
Yeah, so should we wait for another 2-3 minutes or just start?
no, you can start.
Okay. So, hi everyone. Payal has already introduced us. I am a recent graduate from the University of Warwick. I have completed my MSc from economics there, and Muskan and I are here to solve your queries about admissions abroad and the whole process. So, should we start? Muskan, do you want to say something?
I would ask Payal that whatever, I don't know, should we start first or should we allow them to ask questions and then we can brief the questions? Whatever they feel, whatever they are, whatever they feel like doing.
No, you can start by giving the process introduction and then they can ask their questions.
Okay. So, first of all, this is a very nice, great time to have this session because ideally one should start their preparation of admissions abroad by this time, the end of June and July. So, it's a great time actually. I'll just brief you about the whole process and like very quickly. So, first of all, the very first thing to do is shortlisting the country you want to go to, and then shortlisting the university you want to apply to and the program. Now there might be many considerations for that. For example, there might be some preferences for the country. You may want to go to European countries or the US, and it also depends on the kind of career you are looking for after your masters or PhD, because European market is a bit different from the US market. And of course, in the country that you are going to has a lot of impact on what you end up doing in your profession. Secondly, the program. So the good part about foreign universities is that they have a very diverse range of programs. Like you may get behavioral economics, development economics, finance, and business in a very a very quality education and a very structured programs in that term. So that might be one consideration. You may want to go to finance, uh, things like that. Then, of course, the reputation of the universities, the ranking of the universities. You may have some already in mind. So why is it important in the first place? Because it decides a lot of things. It decides what is your target GRE score. It decides what is the target GPA, and then the deadlines. What are the deadlines that you have to meet? So yeah, that is the first thing, shortlisting. The second thing is GRE. So ideally, you should be done with GRE in the early August. Why? Because if you want to retake the exam, because you might not have achieved your target score, you will require at least 21 days to retake the exam. So the best time to be done with GRE, at least for the first attempt, is the early of August. And for that, you should start preparing from July itself, because you need 1 month of preparation, one month of determined preparation. And then if you get your target score in the first go, well and good. But if you want to give it again, then after 21 days. After that, IELTS is also important. You can give IELTS afterwards also, but it's good to have the score with you when you're applying. So yeah, these are the first two things. Then comes the SOP. So a lot of students have doubts about the SOP, how to write it, and is it important, and what to write, things like that. So we'll cover that in the later part. But I mean, right after you have given your exams, start writing the SOP. And ideally you should be the one who write your own SOP. I know there are institutions who do that for you, but you are in the best position to write it for yourself. So SOP should also be done as soon as you finish your exams, the GRE and IELTS, and the LORs. So again, when you shortlist universities, you know how many LORs you require. Is it 2? Is it 3? Things like that. So suppose you require 3 LORs, which most of the universities ask for, then you can start contacting your professors as early as you know, okay, I want to, apply abroad, because you cannot, ask them to prepare LOR for you in the last minute. So it's very important to have LORs in hand when you sit for applying. Now, the process of, you generally don't upload your LORs by yourself, but then your professor should be informed as early as possible so that, they have it prepared when you need it. And the last thing is your CV, because most of the universities require a holistic application, the CV, LOR, IELTS score, GRE score, and everything. So you should have that CV also prepared when you kind of sit for applying. When you have these documents with you, all these scores, everything, then, the early you apply, the best, because it decides a lot of things. So ideally, you should, start your applications by September, October. I know many of the universities have deadlines, as late as January, February, but you might be at disadvantage if you extend your applications by that time. Yeah, so that's the kind of a quick review to the process. Muskan, do you want to add anything?
I would ask them if they have any questions, they can ask us so that we can give detail of those questions, because you have only given a introductory type of description of the process. If you ask us, or if you can just type in the chat box, we will be giving a more detailed answer to your questions.
Okay, somebody has asked something. Okay.
So you are doing MSc Economics from where, if I may ask?
Yeah, yes, sure, no problem. Hi, both of you.
Yeah.
I am currently in IGI DR. Hope you heard about this.
Yes, yeah. हम यहीं के हैं, इंडिया के बाहर के नहीं हैं.
Yes.
So you are preparing. You want to apply for PhD, right?
Yes, most probably. But it would be better to know both the things, like for masters also, because many of our professors itself completed masters twice, from day school and from other than day school in the Europe or somewhere else.
So generally the process for masters and for PhD is same, but the process for PhD is more rigorous. It's more strict, if I can say. So you should have a research proposal. You should have a good GRE score, and when I say good GRE score, it should be above 330. And for masters, if you are applying for a master's program, you can get admission on a score of 310 also.
Okay.
So if you can specify, do you want to apply for masters or do you want to apply for PhD? So that we can be more.
Sorry to interrupt, Muskan. I think his question was about preparation for GRE, if I'm not wrong.
But the score depends, na? If you are applying for masters, the score of 310 to 320 is nice enough score to get a good master, to get admission in master's program. But if you are applying for a PhD program, you need at least 335.
But the bottom line, if you have specified English preparation, so first thing is you have to start by vocabulary. as early as you can. If you give even 1 year to vocabulary preparation, some specific number of words per day, say 10 words, 20 words per day, that would be really helpful. Like vocabulary is a very, very, very important thing when it comes to GRE exam. And again, your vocabulary shouldn't be like general, anything reading from the dictionary. You should focus on GRE, GRE specific words. There are a lot of resources like Magoosh GRE. There's this app which is a very good for preparation. Then
you can also join groups on Facebook. They post GRE specific questions like in every hour, so that you can get an idea of the real questions which are asked in GRE. Because nothing will help you more than mock tests. Mock tests are very important. So even if you have a good vocabulary, even if you have basics clear of your quant, but you need speed, you need time management. Every competitive exam, it is a prerequisite that you need to attempt mocks. So I would only suggest that give as many mocks as possible.
Yeah, and when it comes to skipping GRE, now for masters, some of the colleges don't ask for GRE. There are many who do not ask for GRE, but then most of the good universities, if you want to get into a good university for masters, you have to kind of get GRE. If it is like any university, I can go to any university, then you might find some universities where you can skip the GRE. But
it also depends on your country preference. Like US is more concerned about your GRE score. Every college, every university there, they need GRE score. But if you apply to UK, there are UK has many universities, they don't bother about your GRE scores. You can apply without your GRE, without even giving your GRE.
And another thing is, like, because of this COVID situation, universities like MIT, they have waived the GRE requirement. Many of these universities, US universities to be specific, they have waived the GRE requirement because of COVID. Now, I don't know if they will continue doing so in the coming 1-2 years, but this is the situation as of now. Yeah, and ideally, I have seen people prepare for GRE for they go on preparing for GRE for months, but like 1 to 2 months of dedicated preparation should be enough. And also for IELTS and TOEFL, whichever you decide, if you have prepared for GRE, if you have done enough preparation, then IELTS wouldn't be a problem for you. It would be like it would be very, very easy. So, yeah.
Or one more thing which I would like to mention कि you have said that I'm not good at English since coming from Hindi medium. तो इसमें डरने की बात नहीं है, क्योंकि अगर इंटरेस्टेड हो उन यूनिवर्सिटीज में अप्लाई करने के लिए जो GRE नहीं इतना कंसिडर करते, यूनिवर्सिटीज ऐसे डिवाइडेड होते हैं, Tier 1 कॉलेजेस, Tier 2 कॉलेजेस. Tier 2 कॉलेजेस डोंट रिक्वायर, मतलब उनको चाहिए ही नहीं तुम्हारा GRE. तो अगर उनको टारगेट करना है और उन्हीं में जाने में, मतलब इफ यू आर इंटरेस्टेड, तो GRE से डरने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. और अगर तुम्हें जैसे LSC में ही जाना है, तो यू हैव टू स्कोर वेल इन GRE.
Very well, actually.
Very well. I think 325 plus you need for LSC 325 plus.
Yeah, ideally target should be full marks.
और SEU, if you want to go to University of Nottingham है, University of Bath है, University of Essex है, सब UK की यूनिवर्सिटी, they don't require your GRE scores.
Any other doubt?
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't get great marks in my undergraduation, but then I have finished my MA like off late, and my MA scores are pretty decent, I guess. So how much is the weightage they give for your undergraduation scores during admission?
So firstly, the requirement is not that much. Like most of the universities would want a 6.5 plus GPA, but like 6.57 would do. But the good part about these applications is that they kind of consider your overall profile, not just the GPA, not just any particular thing. So if you're not good at something, you might want to compensate it with some, like you said, a good master's score or even a good research work which you might have
Or
done.
a good GRE score.
Yeah.
I think the top universities concentrate more on GRE score. So even if you have a 5 name, not 5, but even if you have a 6.5 GPA and a good GRE score, then
Yeah, you
nothing
get
can
to go.
stop you from entering a good university.
So you should focus on kind of compensating with doing other good things. It's more of a like the focus is more on the overall profile. That's the thing. A good SOP might be very helpful. If you have written a really good SOP, they might consider you even with a average score.
Ayushi has asked one question.
Yeah.
I think you are in a better position because you have more idea for GRE and IELTS.
Could you please explain the sections?
It's similar to CAT. If you have given CAT, it's similar to CAT, but the verbal section is more dense. And in but quant, like there are 3 sections: verbal, quant, and data interpretation section. It's similar to CAT, which we all give here in India. And one more section is included in GRE, that is analytical writing section. So in that you have to write 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, but that section is not really counted. Like you get the score very late, and it's not really a very important section relative to the other sections. But it's more of a critical thinking section. What you can infer out of a given statement, paragraph. But what one thing that I have noticed about the GRE exam is they kind of try and test you at like from time management to kind of how good you perform when you are mentally exhausted. They have an additional section also just to
Yeah,
kind of
they
exhaust you mentally.
yeah, and it's a 5-hour long test. So they test your patience, they test your ability, how will you perform under pressure, and how will you perform when you are tired. So
Yeah.
that's different. That's a different thing which comes in GRE. It doesn't happen in any of the exams conducted in India, but GRE does so. It's a 5-hour long test, so you get exhausted.
Yeah, and about IELTS, there are mainly 4 sections, 4 parts of the exam: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. The speaking part is conducted on another day, like it is a whole kind of interview. But the listening, reading, and writing sections, they are pretty much like any other English exam. So yeah, reading, like there will be comprehensions which you have to read and kind of give answers according to them. Writing is like there would be Muskan, please remind me how many sections are there in writing?
2, I think. I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly. It has been
Like
2-3 years.
the general
3 years.
Yeah, the general, like the writing essays and things like that, there would be an argument which you have to kind of stand for or against and uh, write about that. And the listening section is they give you something to like different accents, which is not very difficult, but then you need
You
some
have to listen
preparation.
up, like whatever the speaker is saying, you have to listen, and based on the information which they have given, you have to answer some questions. That I think we all have. If we all have that in our ASL, we all had this in our school: assessment in speaking and listening. I don't know if you remember or not. I attempted that in class 11. So it's similar to that.
Yeah, it's the trick is to kind of listen and simultaneously be attentive enough to write the answers. Otherwise it's pretty much very simple exam. More so
If you are
more
well
so, yeah.
prepared for GRE, then
That's
IELTS is a cakewalk. It is nothing in front of GRE. Sagar has asked about scholarships.
Yeah, I think there is another question.
Is GRE
GRE
sufficient or are both IELTS and TOEFL? We'll address this. I don't know how to spell, how to pronounce your name, but Supriya, I would request you to address Sagar's questions first.
Yeah. Okay, so first thing about scholarships is the key is to apply as early as possible, because what happened with us was that we kind of so we gave our GRE in August, prepared for SOP and things like that, but till October, and then applied afterwards. So by the time we had an offer in hand, we started getting offers by end of January, but by then, like, it was too late to apply for the scholarships, especially the government scholarships, because they have a deadline. By that deadline, you must have some offer, like at least one offer with you to apply for that scholarship. So most of the government scholarships, they are from December to early January. So you should have an offer by that time. So that is one thing. Now, there are many scholarships, many government scholarships, first of all, like Commonwealth Scholarship and then INLAC scholarships. These are like the scholarships for different countries, mainly US and European countries. But now the university specific scholarships, many scholarships are offered by university themselves. But the thing is, you have to that depends on the universities that you shortlist. So many, like for example, university might have a merit-based scholarships where they select a certain number of people according to the merit score. But then there are some scholarships which are very random. So they randomly select 3-4 students out of the students that take admission in their university, and then give them scholarships. So again, the key is to apply, to get admission in those universities at the earliest, because then only they'll consider you. Yeah, so that is the thing. Now, because we were not able to apply for the government-based scholarships, everything is available on the British Council's website. Their website is very helpful when it comes to the scholarships. But things keep changing every year. So it's like, as soon as you decide that, okay, I want to apply abroad, it's a good thing to go through these websites and see their deadlines, see their requirements. Most of them requires a minimum score in your undergrad to be eligible. So you should take note of these things as soon as you make a decision.
Is GRE sufficient, or are both IELTS and TOEFL needed?
Yeah. So
see, you can complete it.
No.
GRE is an aptitude-based test that is compulsory, and IELTS is a test for your English ability. So either you will give IELTS or you will give TOEFL. And also it depends on the university. If your university has this requirement that IELTS is needed, like most of the US university needs your TOEFL score. Most of the UK-based university needs your IELTS score. And some university, they don't need any score for like IELTS and TOEFL, because they say that if you have done your 3 years of undergraduation in English, so we don't need IELTS score. So it again depends on your university. GRE is a different test, and IELTS is completely an English ability test.
Yeah, so there's a choice between IELTS and TOEFL, but not between GRE and IELTS. They are like English exam and then the GRE or GMAT. Like, I shouldn't mention GMAT here, but they are like equivalent.
And GMAT is for management courses. It's not for economics or some art courses. It's for if you are applying for MBA or any management course abroad. So then you need a GMAT score.
And another thing about IELTS and TOEFL is that nowadays more and more universities are accepting both. So either you can give IELTS, even in the UK you can give TOEFL, and it's fine. So you can give either of them, and both
And
are kind of very similar exams.
And it's not even needed when you are applying. You can submit your IELTS score after you receive an offer from the university. So, like if you receive your offer in the month of January, you can give your IELTS exam in February and then you can submit your scores.
Yeah,
It's
so
not
that
a pre-requirement from the university.
that is another thing you might want to consider, that if you do not have one particular document at the time when you're applying, even then try to apply, because if they find that okay, this document is not there, they will give you, and if they think that you are a good fit, they'll give you a conditional offer with the condition that you should submit this document or you should submit your IELTS score. This is not true for every document, but then like the IELTS score or your transcript, if you do not have an official transcript from your university, even then, apply at the earliest.
No, it's not required, Yogada, if I have pronounced it right. It is not at all required. And check your course requirements. Go to their website, check their requirements, and if you still have this doubt, mail them. I think we Indians are very skeptical about mailing foreign universities. My junior also asked me, should I mail them? Will this lead to a cancellation of my admission? But you should mail them, approach them, whatever you want, whatever you feel skeptical about, just mail them and check their course requirement. If they mention these requirements, then you must learn these languages. But I don't think this would be a requirement that you should know German or you should know French. This is a very, I don't think they would ask for this. And still, if you have doubt, if you are not clear, just mail them.
Yeah, that is a very good thing about foreign universities, that they reply very promptly.
Very responsive.
Yeah, very responsive.
Is there anything else?
Hi, I thought I'll just speak out. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Muskan. You were one of the very few people who pronounced my name correctly. So I just wanted to know, what is the difference, you would say, in pursuing masters in India and pursuing it abroad? What kind of a quality of education difference or a perspective change would it bring to, if in your experience to both of you, how has it been different maybe?
Supriya, you would like to answer this question?
Okay, I'll try. First of all, the quality of research, it differs, it significantly differs. So even if you're doing masters there, you would kind of sense that the kind of curriculum that you have, the topics would be same, of course. The demand and supply would remain demand and supply, but then the approach there, the research, the focus on research, that is very very different from what it is in India. So the thing is, even after 1 year of your masters, you will be prepared enough to kind of write a quality research paper on your own without any external help. Even it's not even true for master students, even the undergrads. When we met the undergrads from there, they already kind of had a good familiarity with the different softwares and data analysis softwares, and writing a paper, a good paper. When I say a paper, I mean a quality research paper. So that's one thing that is very different. Then secondly, professors there are very, very approachable. You can kind of meet them personally, discuss all kinds of things with them. If you are curious about something which is not related to your course, you can always go to them. They're very approachable in that sense. You can even, if you are interested in writing a paper with them, they'll be very if the topic is interesting enough, they might, end up agreeing. Apart from that, the kind of exposure that, they give, apart from the curriculum, apart from the studies, you'll find different, institutions, World Bank, and then, Institute of Fiscal Studies, all these organizations visiting the university very frequently. So you are able to kind of interact with them on a personal level, and that kind of helps you when you apply for a job, or, when you kind of when you do anything apart from your studies. The I would say one thing that one must keep in mind is that it is more about how many opportunities you can tap. There are more opportunities than you can imagine, but then you'll have to kind of step forward and look out for yourself. Okay, I want to do this. There are a lot of resources, a lot of opportunities there, but then you have to kind of put in your effort. There are people who are, there to kind of help you with your CV. They'll sit with you. They'll, pinpoint your mistakes. Okay, you can improve that, you can improve there, but you have to go to them frequently. So yeah, these are the things. Apart from that, one interesting thing that I thought it was really helpful was that there are two things. There are lectures and then there are seminars. And in seminars, they kind of group students into, 10, 15 students in a group based on their, intellectual ability. They take a test and then they group students. And those 10, 15 students kind of, so there are regular seminars after the lectures. The lectures are the main thing where professors come and teach you. But in these seminars, they kind of discuss the doubts, these 10, 15 students with whoever is teaching them. They kind of solve questions together. It is a very interactive class. So most of your doubts are solved there itself, which may not be covered in lectures. So that is something that I thought was really helpful for me personally. Yeah. Is there anything else which you would like to add?
No, you have covered all the things. कुछ छोड़ देती तो मैं शायद बता देती. बचा नहीं. Payal, do you want to ask something on behalf of all?
No. If anyone wants to ask anything else, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I just have a follow-up to that. So I don't want to get into research. I am presently in a fellowship with the government. So I want to continue working with any Indian government at any level, be it local, state, or the center. So I want to continue doing that. So does it make sense for me to, go abroad and pursue my master's, or probably just in one of the better places in India to focus on something that's more towards the development economic side, and go ahead with that?
I don't think if you want to work here, if you want to stay here, you want to work for the development of the society, there is no need to go abroad and spend your money when you have to, when you are planning to come back and work here. So there is no point. But if you want to pursue masters, you can do it from correspondence. But there is no need to go abroad and do masters. I don't think it's right. It would be waste of money, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, because everyone's been telling me that, you can work, you'll have to work and probably get a return on the investment that you made when you're away.
Yeah.
But I don't want to exactly do that. So, I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Yeah, there's a huge cost involved. And so it's good to do a cost benefit analysis. And it's a very important consideration. This is for everyone. It really depends on what kind of life you want to end up with. If you really want to stay there, stay in India, maybe prepare for civil services or work in the development sector in India, then Indian universities, I mean, they'll prepare you enough that you can do that here. But if you want to go abroad just for the sake of it, or you want to experience the diversity and things like that, then of course the option is always open.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anything else?
It's strange nobody asked about the SOP thing, because generally people are a bit.
Yeah, you can elaborate it on by yourself.
Muskan, maybe you are in a better position to.
No, you do this. What is the basic difference, divergence you both notice in the career and growth structure of India versus foreign universities? I think you covered this bit. Do you want to repeat it?
Yeah, I followed what Supriya explained, but I didn't get the flavor, because I am also doing in IGIDR. We are also doing very rigorous mathematics topics, right? And I was attending post Keynesian economics school from University of Greenwich. It is a 4-day seminar, but they also explain the post Keynesian economics with the help of mathematics, a lot of mathematics and etc. Again, in JNU, they have a very different type of course structure, like more than theoretical, other than neoclassical or the mainstream approach, right? In the ISI, they are more biased towards the neoclassical approach, and we neglected the fact. So, in that sense, I was asking that what is the basic difference you noticed at in the foreign universities and Indian universities?
See, the foreign universities, they don't go teach you the detailed concepts of everything. They can give you a brief description of everything. They prepare you in a manner so that at the end of the year, you are in a position to write a good research paper. They prepare you for that. They don't want anything from it. Like, they don't consider putting more effort towards mathematical economics. They don't put that much concentration. Like in DSE and ISI, it's more of a quantitative subject. But there it is not like that. They only teach you those techniques that you would require during your research. That would involve your econometric analysis. So econometric analysis is more rigorous if you compare from India. They will you will master in stata. Will be a master in stata. So, but you won't be doing derivations and those maxima nikalna, minima nikalna, that's things like that. You will get a brief description of all those topics, but they don't teach you they don't teach these things in detail.
But
Yeah, I think it
econometric, sorry, Payal.
Because also it's a 1-year program. कितना पढ़ा देंगे वो एक साल में?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. India mein it's a 2-year program and abroad it's a 1-year program. So they believe that the basic knowledge of maths and stats you will already be having. So they just conduct a small session for a few days before the course begins. And in their entire 1-year session that is divided in 3 terms, they don't have any subjects on maths and stats.
I mean, there are subjects, but I mean, it's all about the focus. There are, we had real analysis as a subject, but it was more of an option. If you want to get into that kind of maths, it's an option for you.
Because when you pursue your masters, they only prepare you in a way that you are ready for a corporate job. They don't prepare you that after this you have to do a PhD or something like that. Because in PhD they have they spend other 2 years to focus on these mathematical concepts. Because and also in masters in India, studying economics in undergraduation is a prerequisite to do masters. But in foreign it is not like so. It is not like that.
Oh.
In our batch, there was CA. In our batch, there was student.
I think there's some network issue. But I would also like to add that econometrics is a strong subject there. Like they kind of focus too much on econometrics, and there are focused And even the professors of econometrics, like there are people who have been into it, very rigorously. Econometrics is a very, very strong focus there. Mathematics is not as much focused as is econometrics. Yeah, Muskan, what were you saying?
Like here you will only see students who have done economics in their undergraduation, but there people were from different backgrounds. Some people did history, some people were CA. They never studied economics, and they were doing masters in economics. So in the initial 2-3 months, they only give you basic idea, like you will study national income, all those things that you have studied in your undergraduation. You will study national income, you will study Skinsian approach, classical approach, and then they will build on those concepts. And you can imagine the time is limited, तो इतना detail में जाते ही नहीं है. They only prepare you in a way that at the end of the year you are in a position to write a good research paper, क्योंकि उनका पूरा focus is on writing research paper.
Yeah, and by that knowledge, like you can get a corporate job, a good, like you can. That is the two things that they focus on. And also, I'd like to add, like LSE has an option. They also have a 2-year program for those who do not have a strong, background in mathematics. They can opt for the 2-year program, and a 1-year program for those who think they are, they are good enough to kind of jump into the detail, like for those who want to skip the basics. Only LSE has that option. Apart from that, most of the universities offer 1-year master's program. And for those students who want to, do PhD, there's another alternative of doing masters. So that is the MRes program, which is the Master of Research. It is kind of a program. So it is of 2 years. And then after that, you can directly get into a PhD program, which is of 3 years then. But like for people like us who have done masters, we have to kind of get into, for us, PhD is like 5 to 6 years, because for the initial 2 years, they'll teach us again, it is like doing a master's program again, which is more rigorous than the general master's program. So MRes is something that you can say is more rigorous in that sense, if you want to get into PhD.
Okay, now I think we can explain the SOP part.
Muskan, do you want to explain?
SOP part, I think you have covered it. Can you specify on which part you want clarification?
No. Before my
simple process.
Yeah.
Before my question, I think I intervened in Supriya's, Supriya is going to explain the SOP part, no? So I just intervened and changed the discourse towards my question. So
No, I don't think people want to know about SOP as such.
if you can explain
I think
it
you're
in 3
being
minutes, then fine.
Okay, so like SOP is I think one of the most important documents when it comes to your application. It is more like a description about a very holistic, comprehensive description about yourself, your career aspirations, your past, your present, everything. So it is like a written form of interview where you have to kind of portray that you are very well focused on economics, and there is a clarity of, there is a clarity that, okay, I want to do this, and this. After I complete masters, why do you want to do masters? They want a very clear description and focused SOP, basically. So
It should cover your past. Why did you opt economics as a subject in 11-12? Why did you do undergraduation in economics? Why do you want to do post-graduation in economics? And after you do post-graduation in economics, what are your plans? So you should have like you should include all these points in your SOP. And you should
what
also,
are-
like someone Dr. Peter Postel, he visited our college. He is like head of department of University of Bath. And we asked him what are the SOP hacks and how can we write a good SOP that we can get in your university. So he only suggested one thing. You should build a story. कोई भी कहानी बना लो कि मेरे को इकोनॉमिक्स क्यों पसंद है. कोई भी कहानी. मेरे फादर ने बोला, मेरे चाचा ने बोला, इससे बोला, उससे लगा कि बस I want to pursue economics. So you have to show this thing in economics. You should specify this thing in your SOP that I can't live without economics. You have to prove this in your SOP. And if you prove this, they will take you. Because they only want to see your determination towards economics.
And also it should also include what are your expectations? What do you expect to get from this course? You might mention some professor you might be very fascinated by some professor's work there in the university that you are applying, and you might have some research areas already in your head that okay, I really want to get into in depth of this very topic or this area of economics. Those things really help in building a strong SOP.
But the key is you should build your own story. You should not tell anyone else that they should write for you, because if you analyze, you will get a whole story, and that story is the key to get to a good university. Or maybe you can see 6-7 SOPs, combine all the stories of people and make your own story. But that story should be strong.
You're telling very...
This is the truth. This is not my word. These are Dr. Peter Postel's word. He suggested that you should build a story, good story.
And same is with LOR. It should not be just a very basic LOR. Okay, this student, I have taught this student and she or he is very good and this and that. They should be specific about the qualities they mention. If you have done any particular work in the college years, they should be able to mention that. And you have to push your professors to write that. Otherwise, they may write a very generic, LOR, and that might not be very helpful. Because SOP and LOR is these documents are something which is totally in your hands, which is something that you can help in compensating for other things.
After GRE, SOP is the most important thing after GRE score. GRE is a tool which can filter students based on their abilities, and then comes the SOP. Your GPA, your other extracurricular activities, they don't play a major role in your admission process.
Anything else?
I think somebody has a question. How much does it cost to do a master's in the UK versus the US?
UK versus the US, See, it again depends on how is your lifestyle. If you are a person who wants to go party every weekend, then it is like every month you will spend 1 lakh.
I think
it also depends on the place where you are living, accommodation. If you are living inside the campus, then there is no transportation cost involved. Again, it also depends on the location. If you are living in London, then the costs are high. And if you are living in a place like Warwick or Birmingham or Bath, then costs are relatively cheap. But on an average, UK would cost you 30 to 40 lakhs. This is including your tuition fees and your accommodation fees and accommodation charges and your daily expenses. If you are a person that every weekend you have to go somewhere, then it might jump to 80 lakhs also. So it all depends on you.
Yeah, but the basic, like the tuition fees might be around 25 lakhs. Uh,
But
for most
18
of
to
the UK
25 lakhs
universities.
in
Yeah.
UK universities.
And
And
again, because
living
we have been to a UK university, we kind of have more idea about that, because when you live there, then you get the real idea of the kind of costs involved. You might have mental calculations, but like London is relatively very expensive in terms of transportation, rent, everything, as compared to the other places in the UK. And so around 25K is the tuition fees. Then how much would,
in pounds, 25K in pounds.
yeah, sorry. And how much would be
No,
the
it is fine.
rent, I guess?
The accommodation charges ranges from 5 lakh to 10 lakhs, and if you want a
Yeah, it also
very good accommodation, it may cost you 12 lakhs also.
Mhm.
So it all depends on your preferences. If you can live in a room, like you can, there are rooms in which two people can, like it's a flat and two rooms are there. So if you can live in sharing basis, that might cost you 6 lakhs only. So and if you want a separate room, then it costs you 12 lakhs. So it all depends on your preferences.
Yeah, and then another 5
And
6
also,
lakhs
like
for your living
we had friends who were spending 50,000 per month, 50,000 in INR per month, and sometimes we had 30,000. So it all depends what all activities are you doing. If you want to go out every weekend, then obviously the costs will increase. The general idea is 30 to 40 lakhs.
And I'm sorry we don't have very much idea about the US, the cost involved in US, because we didn't really focus there.
Anything else? Okay, then we can end the session. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Muskan. It was a nice
Thank you,
session. A lot of information.
Thanks everyone for joining.
And if they have some more, like further, like they want to know more about these things, they can mail us or they can connect with you. We will tell them about the visa process, or there are much more things. There are much more things involved. When you do it, when you will apply for it, then you will find out that there are a lot of doubts. Still, there are a lot of doubts. So you can ask that time also.
Payal, can you share our email IDs?
Yeah, I'll just share it. I'll email you guys. Same.
Yeah, I have typed it.
Yeah, you can send it here also.
Okay then.
Okay, then. Thank you, everyone.